Okay, so in the last video we talked a little bit about deterrence, and we introduced that deterrence really comes up in a couple different ways, right? So when we think about deterrence, actually we'll do this a different way. So when we think about deterrence, we have this sort of like cloud, right? So we're going to call this like a concept map for those of you who occur. And so we know there's a couple things that are related, right? We know that there is proportional punishment. We know that there is that this is some, so it's got to be fair. We'll call it fair as well. The goal also, because we're focusing on creating this punishment and explaining why people don't commit crime, is that this is meant to be a crime prevention issue, right? So the goal of deterrence, right, is to prevent stuff from ever happening in the first place. We also see that when we think about deterrence, right, not only have equity, we have the fairness, we're trying to prevent crime, right, is that we want to have this codified, so it's like everything's understood, so there's no ambiguity in laws and ideas. And, because we're achieving all this, because there's no ambiguity, because it's codified, it's well understood, right, is that this is supposed to be to a better society. So when we think about like deterrence itself then, right, so deterrence is made up of what, right? So what's inside like this deterrence like cook pot? So the first and foremost thing, right, is that we want to have the certainty of punishment. So this is going to be how sure you'll get caught. So, it's the kind of thing like if you think about, crime in the first place, right, or any kind of delinquent activity, usually if you think you're going to get caught doing it, you're less likely to do it, right? Because, it's a lot easier to be like, yeah, no one's going to see, right? Like, or this, or if you think about like a drunk driver, for example, right? They're at the bar, they're slamming some beers down, maybe they're like, well, I didn't see any cops, and I'm feeling pretty lucky, it's a quiet night, I'm not going to get caught, right? If they believe that's not going to happen, right, then they're more likely to do it. However, if you see like a police department advertising they're doing, drug interdictions or something like this, and there's an increased perception of certainty of being caught, one's more likely to be deterred. At the same time, right, we also know that there is celerity. And this refers to the speed of punishment. So how quickly until I'm punished? This is something that is a little bit more ambiguous. We're not entirely sure if this actually works the way it's intended. But if we think about celerity, how quickly something's going to come, if you commit a crime and you know that, regardless if you think you're going to get caught, if you know that punishment's going to happen soon, super quick, then that represents an example of when you are more likely to be deterred, right? So, for example, let's say that I commit like bank fraud. You guys remember Bernie Madoff from like back in the day, right? So Bernie Madoff, was taking like billions and billions of dollars, right, from investors, and he was basically saying like, I get all these great returns. Trust me. 2008 financial crisis happens. People start drawing their money. Turns out he's like, oh, that was all my money because I wasn't actually investing it, and you got screwed, right? In the meantime, right, he figured that he was going to get caught eventually, but the speed of which he was going to get caught was probably like waylaid, right? So the celerity of the punishment, how quickly it came for him, took a long time. And he was able to live fat on the land for pretty good years. And honestly, like if you think about the fact that you could have been a billionaire and seeing all the stuff that you did with other people's money, and you knew it was going to be like infinite time horizon, you already invested it and gave it to your kids or whatever, and you had to spend like 3 more years in prison, which you were going to die anyway. I don't know. I mean, like, maybe not that bad, right? I could understand why you did it if you thought you could do it, and you were like had no morals, right? The other part to consider as well is the severity of punishment. So this is the harshness of punishment. So, this is going to be things like, you think about Bernie Madoff. Yeah, he's going to serve some time in prison. I don't know, maybe pay back some money or something like that. His kids, his family, maybe they're disgraced, but they're all right? But if you think about how we commit a crime, right? We think about how bad it's going to be. If it's back to that drunk driving example, if it's the first time, thousands of dollars in lawyer fees, maybe you get it off your record, maybe you don't. Maybe it means you lose your driver's license. Maybe you can't do certain things. You have a criminal record. All those are pretty harsh in the long run, right? But so Deterrence tries to factor in these kinds of things. And so just to simplify then what we're trying to do, right? The ultimate goal, if we illustrated this, right, is that Beccario is making this assumption, right, that the certainty, this is just for illustration purposes, certainty, and we think about the celerity, and severity. What basically is happening is that we have these pathways that are put into place. So here, here, and here, that lead to this latent construct deterrence, which is then believed to equal crime prevention. So that's what we're trying to do, right? This is more or less what we're trying to do and manipulate. And we talk about deterrence theory, right? So Beccario's idea is very powerful because this serves as sort of a foundation for the criminal justice system. So the foundation for criminal justice. So the big thing, right, is that when you think about police, this is supposed to manipulate your perceived likelihood of getting caught. We have police drive around willy-nilly all around a neighborhood, sometimes in more directed spots, but we're trying to manipulate it. And so if we believe that you're going to get caught, or if we can create the perception you're more likely going to get caught, then this should deter more crime. If you think about corrections, the goal is to have a severe penalty or punishment. In this case, we take your time, because that's what you ultimately have, and that's what everyone has in society that's equal, right, is take time away from you, or at least where you are forced to spend it. That is your punishment, right? It's being locked up in prison, unable to pursue happiness in other ways, and because it's long, they also perhaps subtly suggest that this is probably not going to be a great time. There's probably a lot of bad things that could happen to you in prison. So if we can make prison seem unpleasant, this should maybe deter more crime as well. Then we can also see this also in the court system, because they kind of control the speed of the process once a crime is brought to the attention of the court. So it's sort of the core idea then, right, is that, each of these can kind of come into place and play a role in committing crime. So to kind of pick this up, there's something else that comes up to mind, right, is that when we have deterrence, who are we trying to deter? And perhaps, right, also is what does punishment do for us? Because we can see that it could do quite a number of different things. It could, we have it, right? So what we think about when we ask that kind of question about what does it do for us, right? We're taking this sort of utility approach in that we want something from our punishment. So we make this investment, we decide to punish people, we are trying to get a return from it. So we want a return on the punishment. And so, in society, like in our society, right, we have these different types of punishment, and what exactly are we trying to do with it, right? So the big thing that maybe come to mind, what's going to be a good color? I haven't made any new colors. We'll do that one because I feel like it. So the first one that we try to do, right, is that we typically, we want to prevent individuals from committing crime. So when we do that, when we put individuals that are preventing or committing a crime, right, we call this specific deterrence, which I'm just going to call deterrent, right? So that's what we get for preventing individuals from committing crime. So if we lock someone up, we want to make sure and we assess a punishment deeply to them, then we're trying to prevent that individual from committing more crime in the future, right? So we're trying to prevent that person from doing it more often. At the same time, right, we also want to prevent crime in the general population. And so when we think about this, right, we call this general deterrence. So, like, if we illustrate this like a little bit, let's imagine that you have two siblings, right? So we have sibling 1. We also have sibling 2, right? And so when we have them here, right, let's say that sibling 1 is evil, right? Commits a crime, right? And there's doing something bad. And then we find out that a parent comes in. We'll make them bigger. And, catches with his laser beam eyes, pew, 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 that you're going to commit crime, right? So in this case, when you're the parent and you're witnessing this child acting, and you have these two siblings, what you try to do then, right, is that maybe this is not something that's explicitly like acknowledged, but it is a passive part, right? Is that the one part is we use our laser beam vision to get the wrongdoer one. So we use our laser beams to prevent someone from committing crime again. So we really don't want you to do it again because what you did was really bad. How dare you steal those dark chocolate orange zest chocolate chip cookies? How dare you? I made those once. They're delicious. Highly recommend it. It is like butter in your mouth. Not butter. I mean, butter's in the recipe, but like you just eat it and you can't stop eating, right? It's like Frog and Toad meme where they keep eating all the time. Oh, so true. The other part is that when you use your laser beams, pew, 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 if you're eating the chocolate chip cookies, you also want to prevent this person. So you're making an example of the other person, this one sibling, to say, don't do this again. So this is to prevent other people from committing crime by using punishment. So that's kind of like the core idea for deterrence theory. It's nothing real complicated, pretty basic, pretty simple. So we'll kind of move to correlates and stuff in the next one.